Oliver earns a good living. At least that's what everyone around him thinks. His salary is respectable. His bills get paid. He isn't struggling to survive. From the outside, his financial life looks completely normal. But there's something nobody sees. Every unexpected expense still makes his stomach tighten. A strange noise from the car. An email marked urgent. A broken appliance. None of these events are disasters, yet each one quietly changes his entire week. Not because they're impossible to solve, because they force one uncomfortable question. Can I really afford this right now? It's a question millions of people ask themselves. Some every month, some every week, some almost every day. What's interesting is that the answer often has very little to do with income. Two people can earn exactly the same salary and experience money in completely different ways. One sleeps peacefully. The other lies awake replaying numbers in their head. Same paycheck. Completely different reality. That raises an important question. If income isn't the whole story, what actually changes the way money feels? Most people spend years chasing bigger salaries, a promotion, a raise, a better paying job. They believe there's a number where everything suddenly becomes easier, where stress disappears, where money finally feels abundant. But for many people, that moment never arrives. The paycheck grows, the pressure stays, because earning more doesn't automatically change your financial experience. Sometimes, it only changes the size of the numbers you're managing. Expenses quietly rise. Expectations grow with them. Life expands to fill every extra dollar. And before long, it feels almost identical to before, just on a larger scale. That's why some people earning $60,000 feel surprisingly secure, while others earning twice that amount still feel trapped. The difference usually isn't talent, it isn't intelligence, and it certainly isn't luck. It's something much quieter, something almost invisible, a number that rarely comes up in everyday conversation, a number that shapes almost every financial decision you make, without you realizing it. That number isn't your salary, it isn't your hourly wage, it isn't even what arrives in your bank account every month. It's what quietly remains after years of choices, the part of your money that no longer has to be earned again. And once that number reaches certain points, your relationship with money begins to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, quietly, like the volume of background noise slowly turning down. Today I want to walk through those turning points, not because they're magic numbers, but because each one changes something deeper than your bank balance. Each one changes how life feels, how you respond to problems, how much pressure you carry, and how much freedom you actually have. As we go through them, I want you to keep one question in the back of your mind. If an unexpected expense landed on your doorstep tomorrow, would your first reaction be solving the problem or worrying about the money? That answer tells you far more about your financial life than your salary ever could. Because wealth isn't just about what you earn. It's about how much of your life is still controlled by money. And once you understand that, the numbers you focus on begin to change. Not because someone told you they should, because you'll finally understand what they're actually buying. And surprisingly, it isn't luxury. It's something far more valuable. Peace of mind. Let's go back to Oliver. Nothing dramatic changes overnight. He doesn't get a massive promotion. He doesn't win the lottery. He doesn't suddenly become rich. Instead, something much quieter begins to happen. Every month, a little more money stays behind. Not because he's depriving himself, not because he's living an extreme lifestyle. He simply stops treating every raise as permission to spend more. At first, it barely feels noticeable. The money sits there, month after month, almost forgotten, until one ordinary Tuesday changes everything. Oliver walks out to his car, turns the key. Nothing. A tow truck arrives. The mechanic makes a phone call later that afternoon. The repair won't be cheap. A few years ago, that phone call would have ruined his entire week. He would have started calculating. Should he use the credit card? Can one of the bills wait until next month? Maybe the repair can wait another few weeks. His attention would have left work. His mood would have changed. Even conversations at home would have felt different. Not because of the car, because of the pressure. This time, none of that happens. He pays the bill, picks up the car, and continues with his week. The repair wasn't enjoyable, but it also wasn't a crisis. That's the first financial milestone most people never recognize. It isn't when life becomes luxurious. It's when ordinary problems stop becoming financial emergencies. That feeling is incredibly valuable because it changes far more than your bank account. It changes your mind. Most people think financial stress comes from spending too much. Sometimes that's true, but often, financial stress comes from uncertainty, not knowing what's around the corner, wondering whether one unexpected expense could throw everything off balance. That uncertainty quietly follows people everywhere. To work, to dinner, on vacation, even while they're trying to relax. It's like background noise. After a while, you stop noticing it's there, until one day, it finally disappears. Researchers have spent years studying what scarcity does to the human mind. When people constantly worry about having enough, their attention becomes trapped in the present. Every decision becomes urgent. Every purchase feels heavier. Long-term thinking becomes harder, not because people lack discipline, because survival demands attention. Imagine trying to solve a puzzle while someone interrupts you every 30 seconds. Eventually, your brain isn't focused on the puzzle anymore. It's focused on the interruptions. Money pressure works exactly the same way. Every unexpected bill becomes another interruption. Every surprise expense steals attention from everything else. That's why financial stress feels exhausting. It's not always the amount of money, it's the constant mental effort. Oliver didn't suddenly become smarter. He didn't become more disciplined overnight. He simply reached a point where unexpected expenses stopped controlling his thoughts. And once that happened, something interesting followed. His decisions became calmer, not because he forced himself, because his brain finally had room to think. That's something many people underestimate. Clear thinking is easier when you're not constantly putting out fires. This is why the first financial milestone isn't really about wealth. It's about breathing room. Breathing room to make decisions slowly. Breathing room to say no when something doesn't feel right. Breathing room to think about next year instead of next Friday. Ironically, that's often where real wealth actually begins. Because when your mind isn't consumed by emergencies, you can finally focus on opportunities. Most people imagine financial progress as climbing a ladder. Higher salary, bigger house, more expensive car, but that's rarely how it feels. Instead, it feels like removing weight from your shoulders. Problems still happen. Cars still break. Appliances still fail. Life remains unpredictable. The difference is, those problems stay problems. They don't become financial disasters. And that's a much bigger shift than most people realize. It's difficult to measure, impossible to post on social media. Nobody congratulates you for quietly feeling less anxious. Yet it might be one of the most meaningful financial achievements you'll ever experience. Because once money stops interrupting your life, it starts supporting it. And that's a completely different relationship. The interesting part is that reaching this stage isn't about earning a magical salary. Some people reach it on modest incomes, others never experience it despite earning several times more. The deciding factor isn't always how much enters your bank account. It's how much remains after your lifestyle has taken its share. That's why every raise presents the same quiet decision. Will this increase your standard of living or your standard of peace? Most people never consciously answer that question. They simply spend a little more, then a little more again, until the extra breathing room quietly disappears. Oliver made a different choice, not a dramatic one, just a consistent one. He allowed a small gap to grow between what he earned and what he needed. That gap didn't make him look richer, it made him feel calmer. And over time, that calm became the foundation for everything that came next. Because the first stage of building wealth isn't really about making your money work harder. It's about making your mind work under less pressure. Once that happens, for a long time, Oliver believed every dollar had to be earned. If he wanted more money, he needed more hours, a better position, more responsibility, more effort. That was the only system he knew. And honestly, it's how most of us grow up thinking. Work harder, earn more, repeat. There's nothing wrong with that. In the beginning, it's exactly how wealth is built. But eventually, something changes. Not because Oliver starts working less, because the work he's already done begins producing results of its own. At first, it's almost impossible to notice. A few dollars appear from investments. A little interest lands in an account. A dividend arrives without asking for it. None of it feels impressive. In fact, it feels almost meaningless. Most people look at those small numbers and think, that's it? They expected fireworks. Instead, they get pocket change. And that's why so many people stop too early. They're looking at today's result instead of tomorrow's direction. Because compounding is one of the few things in life that looks insignificant, right before it becomes powerful. Imagine planting a tree. For years, it barely changes. You water it, protect it. Wait. Some days it feels exactly the same as the week before. Then one summer, you suddenly realize it's casting shade over half the garden. The growth didn't suddenly begin. You simply reached the point where years of quiet progress became visible. Money behaves in a surprisingly similar way. For a long time, Oliver's savings didn't seem to change much. Most of the growth came from him, from the decisions he made, from the income he earned. But little by little, something else started contributing. His previous decisions, the money he'd already saved, the investments he'd patiently left alone. One day he checked his accounts and realized something surprising. Part of the increase wasn't coming from this month's paycheck, it was coming from choices he'd made years earlier. That realization changes how you see money, because suddenly, time becomes part of the equation. You begin understanding that today's decisions don't disappear tomorrow. They continue working long after you've forgotten making them. That's true for spending, but it's also true for saving. Every financial choice leaves behind a small echo. Some echoes fade quickly, others grow louder over time. The difficult part is that our brains aren't naturally designed to appreciate delayed rewards. We love immediate feedback, immediate purchases, immediate results, immediate success. Waiting feels uncomfortable, especially when everyone around you seems to be moving faster. Oliver struggled with that too. Some months, it felt like nothing was happening. His friends upgraded their cars, moved into larger homes, took expensive vacations. From the outside, their lives looked like they were accelerating. His looked almost unchanged. There were moments he questioned himself. Was he being too cautious? Too patient? Was he missing out? Those questions are normal, because progress that's happening quietly rarely feels exciting. But excitement and progress aren't the same thing. In fact, they often move in opposite directions. The decisions that feel the most exciting today often disappear tomorrow. The decisions that feel almost boring are usually the ones that stay with you for decades. That's one of the strangest truths about wealth. It's rarely built through dramatic moments. It's built through ordinary decisions, repeated long enough that they become extraordinary. Eventually, Oliver noticed something else. Financial goals stopped feeling so far away. Not because they became smaller, because each new step required a little less effort than the one before. The system he'd been building was finally beginning to help him. And that's an important distinction. Many people think wealth is about replacing work. It isn't. It's about reducing how much progress depends entirely on your next paycheck. Those are two very different ideas. Oliver still worked, he still planned, he still saved. But now, every month didn't begin at zero. Yesterday was helping today, and today was quietly helping tomorrow. That creates something more valuable than extra money. It creates confidence. Not confidence that everything will always go perfectly. Confidence that every good decision is making the next one slightly easier. That's when consistency starts feeling rewarding instead of restrictive. You stop asking, is this making a difference? Because you can finally see that it is. Not in giant leaps, but in steady momentum. And momentum changes people. It replaces urgency with patience, pressure with perspective, fear with possibility. Once Oliver reached that point, he realized something important. The goal was never to become obsessed with money. The goal was to build a system that asked less and less from him over time, a system that rewarded patience, protected future choices, and quietly expanded his freedom, even while he slept. That's the second turning point. Not when money becomes the most important part of your life, but when it stops demanding all of your attention. Because once your progress no longer depends entirely on what you do today, you begin experiencing something many people spend decades chasing. You begin feeling like the future is finally working with you instead of against you. There's a point where something unexpected happens. Oliver stops thinking about money every day. Not because money suddenly disappears from his life. Bills still arrive. Markets still move. Unexpected expenses still happen. But they no longer occupy every corner of his mind. Money has quietly moved into the background. And that's something most people never imagine. We tend to believe that becoming wealthier means thinking about money more. In reality, the opposite is often true. The more secure your financial foundation becomes, the less attention it demands. Oliver notices it in small moments. He wakes up on a Saturday morning without immediately thinking about work. He takes a walk without calculating what next week might cost. He spends time with people he cares about without a constant voice reminding him that he should be earning more. None of those moments look extraordinary, but together, they completely change how life feels. Because the greatest luxury isn't owning more things, it's owning more of your attention. Your attention is finite. Every hour spent worrying is an hour you never get back. Every decision made under pressure takes something from you, not just financially, emotionally, mentally. Over the years, Oliver realizes that money has never actually been the destination. It was only the tool. The real goal was always something much quieter, the ability to choose. Choosing work because it's meaningful, not because it's the only option. Choosing rest without feeling guilty. Choosing time with family without constantly checking the clock. Those choices don't appear overnight. They're built slowly, almost invisibly, one ordinary decision at a time. That's why the biggest financial victories rarely look dramatic. Nobody applauds when you decide not to increase your lifestyle after a raise. Nobody notices when you quietly invest another month's savings. Nobody celebrates the emergency fund that never gets used. Yet those invisible decisions slowly create a visible life. A life with less pressure, less fear, more flexibility. And perhaps that's what wealth really is. Not a specific number, not a certain house, not an expensive watch, but the ability to respond to life without constantly asking, can I afford this? Or, what happens if something goes wrong? Because once those questions lose their power, something else takes their place. Curiosity, possibility, freedom. Oliver still has goals. He still wants to grow. He still wants to build. But those goals no longer come from fear. They come from intention. And there's a huge difference. Fear makes every decision feel urgent. Intention makes every decision feel meaningful. That's why comparing yourself to other people becomes less important over time, as someone will always earn more. Someone will always drive something nicer. Someone will always appear further ahead. But none of that tells you how they sleep at night. None of it tells you how much freedom they actually have. The numbers people show the world rarely reveal the life they're living behind closed doors. The only comparison that really matters is whether your life feels calmer today than it did a year ago. Whether unexpected problems feel a little less overwhelming. Whether your future feels a little more certain. Those are the changes that quietly transform a life. And they usually begin long before anyone else notices. So if you're watching this today, and you feel like you're still at the beginning, don't let that discourage you. Every financially secure person once stood exactly where you are. Wondering if the small decisions were really making a difference. Wondering if progress was happening at all. The truth is, it probably is. Just not in ways that are easy to see yet. Because real financial progress is surprisingly quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It grows beneath the surface until one day you realize life simply feels lighter. Not perfect, not effortless, just lighter. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. Your financial future isn't shaped by one brilliant investment or one perfect decision. It's shaped by hundreds of ordinary choices, made consistently, even when nobody is watching. That's how Oliver built a life that felt different. Not through shortcuts, not through luck, but through small decisions that quietly accumulated into something much bigger than money. They accumulated into peace. So wherever you are today, don't focus on how far there is to go. Focus on the next decision, because every choice you make today is quietly introducing you to the person you'll become years from now. And one day, You'll look back and realize something remarkable. It was never one big decision that changed your financial life. It was all the small ones, working together, quietly, day after day, year after year, until the life you once hoped for simply became the life you were living.